Looks like it's live.
All right. All right. I didn't know that it was live. Okay. So welcome back to Wellness Wednesdays. And we are really excited. We are really excited about this Wellness Wednesday because we have our favorite people. We just have our favorite people on. It's a total love fest. I'm really honored to have the opportunity to have the people who were really the heart of this, of Invisible Portraits, and talk about it and what it meant to them, how we got here, all of those things. I'm just like very grateful, eternally grateful to Oge, but I want everyone to get an opportunity to introduce themselves so we can have a conversation and go to the deep heart of this incredible film. So we'll start with you, Jamey.
Hi, I'm Jamey. I'm happy to be here with everyone, see your faces, and I was lucky to work on the music and score this beautiful film, and learn from y'all. That's me.
Ruha?
Yeah, I'll go next. Hi, everybody. My name is Ruha Benjamin, and I met Oge through this process. We share a lot of net friends, same network, and somehow someone put a bug in her ear to come over to Princeton and talk to me, and I'm so grateful that she did. I feel honored to be included in this amazing project, and I think I was pulled into it out of that kind of trust in both her and the friendships that led her to me. I didn't know what this was going to become. But at this point, now that we've seen all of her handiwork and creativity and love that she's sort of poured into this project, this love letter, I just feel so honored to be part of it.
Thank you. And Oge?
Well, that was so beautiful, Ruha. Hi, yes. So my name is Oge, and I'm the filmmaker of Invisible Portraits. And I'm just deeply honored to be in community with all these incredible human beings, everyone from Dr. DeGruy to Jamey Heath with the beautiful music that he composed for this documentary. I was doing an interview earlier today, and the first thing that a person said on the interview was, "Who composed your music?" And I was like, Jamey Heath. So like, there's going to be a whole podcast coming out talking about that in the music. So I'm super excited. And, from Ruha, like the mutual friend that connected us was this woman named Claudia Pena. That was like, when I was in the process of making the documentary, she said, there's this woman, Ruha, have you not talked to her yet? I was like, no, who is that? And literally introduced us and got on the call the very next day. And I'm so grateful that she did. I appreciate all of you so very much.
So I am really excited because similarly, it was my family that introduced me to Oge, and they just were like, she's the bomb, she's good people. Cause you know how in your family introduce you to people, you go, okay, they all right. Really, how are they?
No, the DeGruys are the worst.
Yeah, the DeGruys are. We're bad.
They're like, they think you're probably not all that. That's their problem.
That's which is true, because we got our own brand of crazy. And the thing that I really appreciated was the folks that talked to me about Oge were like, she's real people, and that's who I am. I can't get with folk that don't know who they are and they're trying. I don't have time for it. And they said, no, she's a real deal. She's real people, and you become family. You can't sneak in. So when Oge came to talk to me about the film, we were both emotional, and I could tell, I could just feel her heart. I could feel her heart. And didn't know about Ruha, didn't know about Jamey. All I knew was, and I didn't even know what it was going to be. I mean, you cannot imagine. I don't know about you all, but when I did my little piece, which, was my little piece, I had no idea it was going to be, become this woven, beautiful, tapestry that was created. So I really wanted, and I know everyone that's looking at this, every single person. I mean, I have people that I just didn't really think were going to really get into it. Got it, bought it, took it to work, insisted that people buy it. It's got all out. I mean, people went all out. Every single person that I know that has seen this film has been, in your words, Oge, rearranged. They've been rearranged, right? You know, and they have really taken to heart who we are. You know, I was really disturbed when, you know, the book The Help came out.
Yeah.
Lord. And then every white woman in the world was going to be my friend, right? Because she understood the.
No, they'd tell you, you need to see The Help.
You need to see The
My
Help.
family was The Help. I don't need to see The Help.
Yeah, right? That part.
You don't need to review
You do
that.
not need to see The Help.
But this was a film that everyone's proud of. You know what I mean? Black women. You know, we said goodbye to our neighbors because we're moving, and I said, "Oh, by the way, have you seen?" And you know, it's like immediate transformation of people. I think I got some points too with the neighbor. I was in the film. I get points for being in the film, right? But I wanted to ask, and I'm going to start with you, Ruha, because there was something that happened to me because of you. And in the film, there's a moment where you talk about a couple of things. One of the things that touched me the most was when you said, when you see that child, that Black child, and their parent is occupied, and they look at you and you beam them love. And I don't know why that particular piece did what it did, because people have done that to me and for me. And I instantly connected with that, but it also instantly connected with you. And I wondered if you could talk about why that love that you talked about affected you the way it did.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to talk about without crying. So I'm mad at you for starting with this. You should have started after, so at least I wouldn't have that runny face. But you know, I just feel that from the time I was young, I felt kind of wrapped in other people's well wishes and love for me. There's no time when I felt alone. And growing up specifically in Leimert Park in South Central Los Angeles, even now when I take my boys back, and that's why I know it's something special about that place, because it doesn't happen to us everywhere. People who don't know us will just stop, and they will sometimes ignore me and just counsel them and shower them and just being like, I'm so, like, they don't know anything about these children, but they will just almost like their well-being is connected to these boys doing well and living a good life and knowing who they are. It's like the division between who I am and who these children are, it's not there. And so I remember one of the trips recently, we were at the track over there at Rancho, Rancho Park. And I was jogging the boy, and we were just coming into the track one day, and this elder man just stopped them and gave them a whole rundown schooling. Listen to your mom, do this, do that. Doesn't know us, doesn't know our name, but feels obligated not just to show love in a kind of saccharine Valentine's way, but a love like this, like love as a force, not love as a sentiment, but love as a force. And that's why in the film, when I use the word beam, I'm invoking that idea that love is the most powerful force in the universe. And I have been the recipient of it my entire life. And so that's why, you know, like on paper, so much attention is put on individual success and what individuals do. And I know my truth is that anything that I've been able to do is because people have been beaming love at me since I was a little girl. People who I know, people who I don't know. And so that's why I feel such like I'm overflowing with that. I'm wrapped in it. It's like an armor, a robe. It protects me. It gives me a sense of things, you know, just perspective. And so I feel so responsible to make sure that it doesn't stay with me. It's a force that I have to pass on. And it's in the small things. It's not, you know, like it's in the small things that in my personal truth is that everything that we think of as small in this world is actually magnified. And everything that we think is wonderful and great, and this makes you a success in this world, is like, whatever. It's like, oh, that. Everything is reversed.
Yeah.
And so that means that little look, that little beam is actually, I think, what that is what we are. That is who we're going to be, you know, when we pass here. That is the definition of immortality, because what we actually pass on to others continues on and on and on. That is how you stay immortal, is by beaming love in that way. And so that's why it's hard for me to talk about it, because it's just, that is life for me.
that moment though, it wasn't just for us. Like, I think for me, when you said that, when you're like, people have done it for me, they didn't have to. And the thing is, I feel like people choose where they want to be in that light. And I know that when in the places where I've lived and there was no diversity, Karita always talks about when she was a Rockette and she said she was she'd be in Detroit, and she said there's like 10 older Black ladies in the front. She goes, the weight of the whole Black world was on my shoulders. Like, they're like, don't mess up. Staring at me like, you are the ones who are gonna bring like all this like power towards you. Like, don't you mess up the one Black girl.
Exactly.
Right? But also, like, when I've gone into schools and where they're doing teacher evaluations and teacher observances, and what do you notice and what do you wonder? And I'm like, I noticed every Black child in that school stopped me and asked me if I was somebody's mom or if I was working there now. So which lets me know they're hoping that there's someone who I said, so I don't care if you got to have some people come in and do story time. I don't care. They don't have to be employees. You need to have some people who can shine some light.
That's right.
Kids. And that's the first thing I felt when you said that, was those moments that are so critical.
That's right. And you know, that's what makes what I think of as the rationing of love and the rationing of empathy, and the way that racism and other forms of oppression actually create that rationing so that not everyone gets it. And to me, that is the definition of injustice, is that everyone does not experience that and get that. Rather, we've structured our society that's beamed in some directions and not others.
And what's powerful too, I think, about what you were saying and bringing people to that space, is that even as an adult, you know, and I'm holding it down as the elder here, and I'm learning that role, to be perfectly honest. I'm learning more about what the role of elder is, and realizing that when I walk down the street and I see that person give me that nod, what it feels like, you know, it's like, not only do I see you, but you're valued, right? I feel valued, and this is a perfect stranger just to cross the street that just gives me that nod, and it warms my heart, you know. And how much, even as an older adult, I need that too. So how much more are young people who don't feel seen? And that's what I also loved about the film. Jamey, you said something to me when we were on the phone that was so amazing. First of all, I have no clue how, God bless you, that you can bring from out there in the music, hearing it world into reality, which I think artists are they're magicians, they're magical, they're amazing, you know, they're our superheroes, you know. And I wondered about that statement you made. You said, oh no, I saw things over and over again to get a feel for what talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate what you said, but let me give a little props to Oge with that, because Oge don't play. Once she invited me to be a part of the film and do the music, she laid it down that she didn't want my B stuff or C stuff. She says, I want you to come with it all, or I'm just gonna get rid of you, right? She's loving and stuff, and she got all this sweet face and sweet smile, but she don't play. Right. And she was real clear about how important this project was for her, and how she wanted this to be a love story, really a love letter to Black women, and that she didn't care who else got it. If they get it in the end result, okay, cool. But my first thing is about giving a love letter to Black women. So she was clear on me. So when you tell this story, you make sure you come from that perspective. I watched her do this with the editor, who's wonderful, who's a white man, who's brilliant. She kept going back and back. Nope, this ain't a letter to the Black women. So I got to see all this in the process. So when it came to be my time, I had to really, really, really interpret that. So that required me to watch all of you. Now, I love all of you, and I know all of you for many years. You guys are my friends. But yet, hearing what you're sharing, when I hear personal stuff, I have to rewatch it and watch it and give me a feeling. So I don't want to get in your way. This is y'all's story. And the music was not meant to be anything that was noticed so much other than to support it. So that required me just to kind of try to be humble, watch it over and over and over again. And then from that, pray and ask God to like not let me get in the way. And then Oge, of course, coming every now and again and saying, no, Jamey, that's wrong. Do it. But she was gracious and for the most part loved everything I did other than when she needed to tell me to redirect myself. And let me can I just share a quick story real quick about Oge?
Of course.
We all know Oge and gotten to know. I've known Oge for many years now. We're friends. She's been to my house many times. We do things, spiritual walks together. And this is my girl here, my woman here. So we're close. And yet this is what's interesting. This is a story about not only Black people, but women. And we know that women in general are oppressed. And then you add on top of that, Black women. So I did the music. She's been nothing but loving and wonderful. The movie came out. I'm a man and I have an ego. Movie came out. Try not to. I saw the film and she's done everything right with this, right? But when I saw it, I saw that I didn't have a credit in the place that I wanted my credit. Okay? In the place that I felt like I deserved it. So instead of just calling Oge and saying, baby, I love you, this is amazing, I threw that in there too, but I brought attention to myself about the fact that my credit wasn't where I wanted it. And here I am on a day that rarely do we get to celebrate Black women. And she's put her heart and soul in it now for the last couple of years or longer, putting this together. And I drew the attention to myself. And yet she responded with love and she let me know there's wrong timing, Jamey, but because she'll always speak her truth. But even still, in the face of still dealing with almost, I don't want to say it's oppression, but how we even as men will redirect something to ourselves and take away from here's a story and just let it be that. And I was ashamed of how I handled it. And Oge, I love you and I'm sorry. And thank you for the way you responded, even though you had every right to cuss me out. That's what I got for you. I don't know what you didn't even ask me that, but that's.
Yeah, no, but see, that's the part that I love so much about being a part of this is that it was so authentic and real and human. You know what I mean? I think that's a piece that is moving people literally all over the world now.
Well, people are asking what movie.
Oh.
Even though it's in the description, we're gonna show the trailer just because we want people to have a sliver.
Absolutely.
And then they can go and they can purchase, download, get the actual film. So
and then we'll have Oge talk about it. The film. Because we're talking about something that people don't maybe.
What is it? What are you talking about?
Not just me that talks about that.
Instagram. No, that Instagram. Nobody says that Instagram. And they're talking about it on that Instagram. The blacks.
She's so bad.
Okay.
She's the only one that can do this to me.
All right.
No further ado.
The most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman.
From the beginning, everything was set up for us not to survive.
We were meant to survive as units of labor. We were meant to survive as commodities. Society's views toward Black women are framed through these particular images.
She's aggressive, violent,
Out of control. That's all you are.
it flies in the face of the reality of who we are.
For decades, all we wanted was to be accepted and visible instead of invisible.
The only way that can happen is if we ensure that it happens by creating our own narrative and knowing our own stories.
You have to be able to give words to it, give names to it. If you don't tell your own story, somebody else will. By telling our own stories,
There's a kind of fierce independence of mind, of will, tenacity.
No matter what stands in our way, no matter how hard it gets,
Still we rise.
I will stay strong. I'm never giving up faith. I will go on. No other way. This will be the day.
there's nothing more beautiful.
Brave, unbossed,
Loving, independent,
Strong, divine. I think that Black women are divine.
Mm. Yeah.
So every time I see it, Oge, every single time I see it, every single time I can't. Can you speak to? I mean, even putting together that trailer, how in the world? It was like, Mike, how did you do that? How did you do this thing?
Yeah, watching that now made me start to get emotional. I don't think I've been emotional around the trailer in a while. I mean, from the beginning of this process, the intention that I set from the very beginning, from when I started the research phase to the production phase to the post, was that the higher power, I mean, whatever name is on the door for you, you know, whether it's God, Buddha, Allah, Krishna, whatever name's on the door for you, I just ask that it allow me to be a vessel. And I set that intention and stated that intention every single day in my research, every single day in the post, every single day in production. And so when people ask me, how did you do it? Like, it's really hard for me to take credit for it because I don't know. I don't. Like, I even look at it still to this day, and I just how did I create that? But I mean, I know there's some things obviously actively that I did as far as like research and things like that. You know, when I decided to answer the call and make this documentary, I committed to about 9 months of research, where I committed to 6 days a week, 14-hour days. Of just reading every book I can find about Black women, reading books written by Black women, visiting archive centers, and just really immersing myself in the Black experience, particularly the Black women's experience in America. And it was hard, you know, like it was really, really hard. The first 2 to 3 months of research, like I said, like I would research 6 days a week, and on Sundays would be the day that I would rest. And I found myself not being able to get out of bed. I would spend most of the day really really in like deep sorrow and depression, or I found myself crying heavily on Sundays. And I remember one day laying in bed being like, this ain't gonna work. Like I won't be able to finish it if I stay in this state. And so I'm very into prayer and meditation, but that still wasn't sustaining me. And so I realized that I had to get back into therapy, because I was holding on to so much anger and resentment and sorrow and pain, and that I was carrying the stories of these women who I read about who witnessed their entire families being lynched. I was carrying the stories of, you know, young girls being raped at the age of 8 and 9 and hearing their narratives. Like I was carrying so much, and I needed a space to release it. But then I also was empowered to use those what we perceive as negative emotions as fuel to create something that served as a voice for them, to create something that, you know, they would be proud of. And so, it was hard. It was a very, very hard process. And I tend to say that this entire experience for me has felt like a rebirth. Like it's truly felt like a rebirth because, as I was doing the research, the first emotion that I experienced heavily was disappointment. Because I was like, how are you 32 and you don't know majority of what you're reading? And I was so mad at myself and I was so ashamed that I didn't know these things. And then I had to realize and give myself grace and knowing that the things that we're taught in schools is revisionist history, right? So I had to remember that at the end of the day, we're really living in a social construct, we're living in someone's imagination. So how can I now take what I know and create something that would be not only powerful and serve as some form of redemption for my ancestors, but that also spoke the truth. And that's what led me throughout the entire process.
So tell us about you. I mean, by your name, your name, we automatically know that you're unique in this group. So tell us about you.
So my full first name is Oge Egbuonu, and Oge Egbuonu means God's timing is divine. And I started going by Oge because in schools, teachers would have such a hard time saying my name. So they'll be like Ashley, Shanika, Thomas, all these names. And when it got to my name, they would just get really silent or they would just start spelling it out. And so then I was just like, okay, can you say Oge? Let's just go with that, the first 3 letters. And I still have a hard time with that, to be honest with you. So, me and my brother are first generation. Both my parents were from Nigeria. All my family is still in Nigeria. So in the States, it's just me, my mom, and my 2 brothers. And yeah, I grew up in a single parent home because my dad brought my mom to the States. And unfortunately, from the first day that he brought her here, he was very abusive mentally and physically. And it wasn't until she had me 4 years into the marriage that she realized that she just had to get out. And so, she didn't leave, he really left. But, she had no choice. She had to teach herself English, worked multiple jobs. And I grew up very much so resenting my mom in a way because I wanted her to be there and I didn't understand why she couldn't. Versus now, and through therapy and as an adult, I understand the circumstances now, but as a child, I grew up feeling very invisible. It's kind of the opposite of what Ruha was talking about. So I wanted to create something that not only told the story of Black women, but that held reverence for Black women and Black girls, and for them to feel seen and to feel visible, and to know that they matter. And I'm hoping that in this film I did that.
You did. My daughter, I had my children watch it. We got the sneak preview version before we could share anything. I got the small, I was like, so we're gonna be live for 24 hours, so you better get it in. So I got my kids together and my children, whenever they see their grandmother in a different light, this is someone else decided she should put her in something, they're like, oh, hey, let me pay attention to what my grandma's saying today. And watching my son, what's happening, I think in his eyes and his just watching these stories and I could tell was everything doesn't go straight to the heart, especially with a teenage boy. It's but it you could just see how it just permeated throughout all of them. And my daughter, she felt I don't know how to explain. It's been really an interesting thing. I have a beautiful dark-skinned girl who I worked very, very hard to ensure that I understand her experience. It's not exactly mine, without saying it's not valid, but also not allowing her to make that part of her reality, whatever that social construct that we were talking about that's out there. Don't deny that there's this weird team dark skin, team light skin, weird stuff happening, but also we're not gonna accept that as our truth. But you know what I'm saying? I don't want to deny it. And watching the gamut of all the different women, all the shades, all the experiences, and then seeing her grandmother in that space, who she's extremely close with, did something for her that any examining the Black female experience could, because it wasn't just history, and it wasn't just a couple of ladies, and it wasn't just trauma, and it wasn't just joy. It was all of it. And she felt a part of it. It made us feel completely lockstep with that experience, which it's an interesting balance to have. So,
and the people that, gosh, I always just get so emotional about it. The people that I've shown the film to, they look at me and they just say, thank you. Thank you. It felt like someone, an embrace, a huge embrace. And it felt like, I remember we were, you remember when after talk, after the premiere, and one of the questions that we were asked, those of us that were there in the room, we were asked, so do you think this is going to be educational for people, white women or people who don't know? And it was just a moment where I'm going, this I realized later how harsh it might have come out for us. But I'm like, this ain't about you. It was like, and it was an instant. And I had to really, dial myself down a little bit. But I said, this was about us loving us and celebrating us and honoring us and lifting us up. I hope you got something from it. But if you didn't, it was just, that's how possessive, I guess, I became of the whole experience. Is that this was ours. And it felt like, and then of course, once the question was asked, who do you wish would be here? There was just a flood of tears. Yeah. Everybody just, my God, I just think about how hard my mother and my grandmother clean floors on her hands and knees. You know what I'm saying? She didn't live to see this. But my God, what Ophelia would have, what Ophelia would have felt if she saw this, because she was our shero. She was, beyond anything. Ophelia was something else. She was tough, but she was the one who told me, when I told you, she would tap the head and said, you came from smart people. You came from smart people. And just knowing that one little thing, that beam, Ruha, that she beamed that love at me and to say, don't ever let anyone think that you're anything less. And so that film, to me, Oge, really, it is, I could exhale. I could rest and feel like, there's something that I put out in the world that I feel 100% proud of, and without reservation, knowing I left something good. You know what I mean? Something good. And I mean, I just thank you. I thank you for that. I thank you for that vision. I know that all of our experiences, Ruha, Jamey, all of us, Bahia, all of this film was part of joy and sorrow. It was joy and sorrow embracing. And it was wonderful, right? It was wonderful. But all of our toil, all of your hurt, all of what created in you that vision, every piece of your life that brought you to that. And so much of it, for me, so much of it, I mean, I dug deep into trauma. It was like when I had the same experience when I was writing my book. There were days when I couldn't come out. My kids would come and open the door and look at me and go, okay, because I was tore up. I would just be on the floor crying because I would be reading the slave narratives, and I was reading and then remembering the stories in my own family, So, I know that everything that about who we are in our lives and our experience poured into that, all of it, each one of us. And while I'm saddened by the suffering, I am gladdened by the fact that it awakened a vision that is going to stand the test of time. Any other questions? Anybody else have questions about stuff? I think that, there's so many people that have wanted. Do we have any questions?
I don't know. We'll ask Alex to see if there's any questions.
Yeah. So Alex, if there are any questions in the queue.
What I was thinking about, I think this is going to sound really kind of morbid, but if you know us, it's not morbid. So So when I saw the film, I thought, wow, you know, my mom is going to die at some point. And when I saw that, her talking, I thought there are things that people pull when their parents pass for you to be able to say, this is the epitome of who this person was. And mom has a lot of talks, and she's got a lot of things that she's done that my kids have sat there through lots of things. But in that moment, she was sharing not just her like knowledge, you know, and it was their grandmother in a very regal way, being authentic about her life and about her feelings about being a Black woman, her feelings about being part of this special group, right, of people and humans. And I thought about my grandmother on the other side, how proud she would have been of my mom to see her in that kind of regal wisdom space. And it made me feel emotional, mostly because I was just like, oh yeah, my mom's gonna die. But also like, how fortunate am I, right, to have this piece of her in this moment that somebody captured. Well, not somebody, you captured. It's that you captured. And my kids, I could just see whenever she would come back on screen, right? They'd hold their breath. Like she's been, he was back, you know, and they'd watch it. And I thought, you know, that is something that forever we're going to have. For any future generations are going to have that. And that is a blessing. And in thinking about the invisible versus the wrapped in love, right? And that is that same thing that you're talking about, is having felt invisible and taking that and making it something that creates the kind of like, it's the inspiration for people to start doing that beaming, right? So it's almost like just by you having had your experience, you created a space where other people will get to be wrapped. And that is something that's like, would that have happened if you hadn't had that place? You know, because Ruha didn't create this. She's a brilliant, amazing mom, but she didn't create this, right? Nope. And so where did that come from? And so it's, I think that, you know, that's part of the lesson here. I think when you think about beaming light, grown women need to be beamed on you too, right? Grown people. And I think the whole thing made me think about how to lift up
Absolutely. It reminds me of, you know, what Toni Morrison says about if there's a book you want to read, you have to write it, right? And so it's like that the arts grows out of the longing for what you want to be in the world. And if nobody else is going to create it, you have to create it. And it feels like this grew out of that deep longing for perhaps what you didn't magnified. It's like you didn't just create it for yourself, but now generations, you know? And so I feel like in that way, you're a student of Morrison in terms of building the world that you want to live in, you know?
Someone has asked, where can people okay, I don't know what that is. So there's problems?
No, they're just saying there's been some freezing because whatever the third party, there's been some tech issues.
It's a Zoom issue.
So they make, okay, so Zoom is doing something weird. But we just want people, I think we should say where they can get the film, but also we're going to put it in our notes and everything so people can access it from this Wellness Wednesday. But could you just talk about the place?
So the film right now is currently on Vimeo on demand, and you can only at the moment purchase it off of Vimeo on demand. But we are in the works right now of gaining a distribution partner. So in a few weeks, it'll have a wider release, and it'll have a theatrical release within the next month or two. But at the moment, it's on Vimeo.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm on. What does that mean? I gotta tell old people.
I see.
So in a few weeks, it'll be on more platforms like Roku, I think that's how you say it, Vudu, Amazon, iTunes. You'll be able to purchase it on other platforms in a few weeks. And then in a month to 2 months, it'll have a theatrical release, which means it'll be in theaters. Which ones I don't know yet. I don't know the market, but yeah, so really excited about that.
Congratulations, my dear. That's
congratulations. And I'm making it mandatory for my students. I'm making it mandatory.
And I started thinking, okay, you know, we could arrange to have, you know, group watch groups. You know, there's all these different small women's groups all over the country that could, you know, be able to have, you know, private viewing.
Have you thought about putting together some sort of, what's it called, when you do the workbook kind of study thing?
Oh, like a guide that
something that
Invisible Portrait Syllabus.
Yeah, we
Hashtag.
actually have. And this is what I need to talk to you guys offline about. And I actually, it's in my notes, like no exaggeration, to reach out to all y'all next week about this. Because I mean, there's so many schools reaching out at universities, like Berkeley just reached out, and Rutgers and DePaul and UCLA, and all these schools want to license it and bring it into their schools and make it mandatory curriculum for incoming freshmen. And I keep getting asked about, like, is there a curriculum to follow this? And I'm like, we just released it, give me one moment. So I do want to, you know, I do, that's part of the goal. You know, like for me, the vision has always been to get it into schools and universities first and foremost. And so I do plan on building curriculum around that. But I also understand where my lane is. And so I know that I need to employ and hire scholars and professors to help build that. So yes, that will be in the works.
I have one more question for everyone, and that is, how important is this experience, this film, to what is currently happening in America? The timing was amazing.
Not by accident though, because she released it when shit's starting hitting the fan. She's like, we gotta move it up. So that's by design, right, Oge?
Yeah. You know, that was definitely by design, because initially the release was for the fall. But then, you know, after the murders of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, I felt that we were collectively in this space where people were starting to question the things that they had been conditioned to believe true. And also there was this like collective yearning, especially from white folks, of being like, I need to do better. Like, I want to re-educate myself. Like, where, you know, like what can I watch? What can I read? Like, where do I go? Because I realized that I have been, you know, aimlessly dwelling in privilege. And so I reached out to my investor and was like, hey, like, you might think I'm crazy, but, and this was like literally 2 weeks before Juneteenth. And I was like, I want to release it on Juneteenth. Like, I know that sounds insane. We have nothing in place regarding distribution. We didn't even have a publicist at the time, but I was like, I literally been meditating on it for the past few days. So I just ask that you continue to trust me in this process, and let's release it on Juneteenth. And he was like, all right. Like, let's do it, you know, either to do really well or it will bomb in a terrible way. And luckily, I was very blessed. You know, I keep saying, like, there's been a higher power guiding this process the entire way, because I just was so blessed with an incredible PR team, Narrative PR, who literally, Brenna and her team saw it and got it immediately and was like, we are all in, like, we're all hands on deck. And I mean, it was 2 weeks of sleepless nights for the entire team. And we, you know, we brought it to fruition. You know, Neuhaus, who supported me from the very beginning of it, was like, absolutely, we're in. You can have our space, have access to our tech, whatever you need. We want to support this film. And so I just been, you know, very, very grateful for all the love and support that has been poured into ensuring that this is, you know, put out there in the world.
Well, I'll tell you, it certainly couldn't bomb. That wasn't going to happen. And I know for certain that it gives me speaking points as a professor. It gives me speaking points in my lectures and everything that I do. I feel like I have this, I just have this store of knowledge of what I can feel to be inspiring, because there are things that you can write, you know, and I've written a book. I was recently trying to put the book, honest God.
Wait, this is the funniest thing.
I was trying, we got it all
No,
set up.
she was harassing everyone to help her get set up so she could do her audio book. Oh, yes. I need help, I can't. Everybody in the family coming together. So then she gets it all together.
And I started falling asleep after the third page. I was like, oh my God, I gotta read this whole thing out loud. How did anybody read it? I was like, you know, she was like, it was torture.
I gotta get some more coffee.
I had coffee.
I gotta get some more coffee.
I was drinking coffee. I just had to speak 3 pages. I was like, you know. So,
and I would say, entire voiceover, but that book has to be in your voice.
It has
Like
to.
there's no way that a voiceover person could do justice to it.
I promise it's going to be done in August. I'm going to do it. But I was like, I was like, wait a minute. Let's go clean the kitchen.
I said, wait, what are you? Why are you supposed to be in the closet?
Let's go clean the kitchen.
She was in a closet studio.
I literally was in a closet.
And I was like,
I was literally in the closet.
I was like, get back in the closet.
That has something to do with it. I bet you if we assembled a very quiet audience and you read it to them, it would keep you awake. But staying in that closet is not going to work at all.
She was nodding off in my closet.
No.
I said, okay.
No.
So no, I think you're absolutely right. That is perfect. She needs to have an audience.
You just need an audience. They all have masks on. They can't talk.
Yeah.
And they just sit there.
Yeah.
And they can listen to different chapters.
Yeah.
But even if you could hear the feedback from people, that's energizing for her when she's speaking.
Yeah, you can't do it in a closet.
No, she certainly couldn't. And after all that she put us through, make sure everyone's quiet. Don't have. I mean, we were like, we're all ready for her to do this. She was back out in like 5 minutes. Like, what are you doing? Get back to the closet.
But my point was, here was my point. My point was, you can write stuff, and people can read it. And again, when I had to read it, I realized how people were. Yeah, I was sad for them. But the thing that I realized about the arts. About the arts and the power of the arts to transform within seconds, within minutes. You know, again, when I was telling Bahia when we were watching the trailer just now, I started crying again. The music, when this woman stands up, and I know her story. We all know her story. When she stands up, we will rise up. You know, it was like every cell in my body can feel that. But the music itself just, you know, it just does something, right? And I think that I so respect. That's why I really wanted to have both you, Jamey, and Oge on, because I think the power of the arts to transform hearts is much more powerful and immediate. God bless the book and the scholarship and all of that. But within a moment, just the picture and the music, I'm just saying, it has that ability to catch fire in people. And I just, you know.
That's something that even though Jamey's family is really good for, because I grew up I didn't grow up. I went to school in Nashville, and I made the mistake one time of bringing my family. I think it was graduating. My parents were in town, so I was like, oh, the family does our, you know, kind of unity feast, unity Bahia events. And for all folks, and I came and I didn't see any of my people. And I said, why aren't you here? And they're like, oh, we don't come when other people do the music. I said, well, why? Because literally they would try to figure out the feeling they would want people to have.
This is Jamey's family.
His family. The feeling they would want people to have in that experience. So like if the music doesn't line up with the experience, doesn't line up with the words, it doesn't work. And I would think this is kind of extreme. But when they weren't there, it was a fiasco.
You didn't want to be
fiasco.
You know how the person, someone gets up and sings that can, and it's the worst thing in the world. You know, like his family's like, ooh, look at the time. Yeah.
But that is true though about Jamey and how his family create. Because I remember when I met with Jamey regarding to compose the music, I was like, you know, like, did you see it? He's like, yeah, I saw it. I was like, you know, like, I want people to like really like feel like Black women's pain and struggle. Like, I don't know how else to tell you, but like, I just want you like create something. And then I remember he called me in, and it was like a few days later, and he called me in, and he was like, okay, trust me on this. Like, I've been sitting back and watching it, and I think this is it. I think this is the tone that we want to go with. And he played this track of what was this older Black woman doing these hummings that, like, you know, like back in the day, like Black women would just do this deep humming, and it was just no words, but just sound. And I remember sitting there, and I mean, tears. And then like, I remember leaving that session, I sat in my car and I cried, because I was like, like, how did he do that? Like, you know, like, and it was all through a machine. It wasn't a person. It sounded like someone was singing, and they wasn't. And I'm like, how did you do that?
Exactly.
Magic.
Exactly.
Yeah, magic. I mean, they were singing, but yes, at the time that you had heard it, it was all kind of in the idea stage. But indeed,
Wow.
we just follow your lead. I'm trying to, while everyone is talking, realizing the space I'm in right now, which is y'all, and listening. And what I feel, because I think your question earlier was like, how do we feel it relates to now? I use this thing. We all have been shaking a tree for a long time, waiting for fruit to fall, for people to listen. Um, and right now, more than ever in my life, people are listening. They may not end up agreeing, but at least they're pausing for a minute.
That's right.
So for this film to come out now at a time when people are pausing, and this subject matter, not necessarily Black women, but Black in general, it's super timely and powerful because something that I think, Oge, you did unique with this. Now, I don't care about delivery too much. For me, it's like I don't want to curb the way I say something to someone so that it appeases you, right? I got something to share. Y'all need to find a way to listen to it. However, the message that's being told, we want people to receive. Even though it's a love letter to Black women, I want the world to see it because I think it's powerful. Because, see, my growing up with a white family, I didn't have aunties and cousins that were Black. I had my sisters, but my experience was not Black women. The Black women I knew were on Jefferson's and Good Times and such. So my relationship, now there was a few people, of course, I was raised in a faith that there were, the perceived idea of equality and only to not really witness it truly. No indictment on my faith, but indictment on the way people exercise it. So when this movie right now comes out, I feel like having white friends as well. I don't know what their perception is. No, I do know what their perception is of Black women, and it ain't accurate. Because they don't have intimate relationships. They have a pocket friend here or there. So for this right now to come out when I feel like a foundation, I'm looking at like these little pockets over here. So I'm probably not looking at the screen because you guys are way in the corners and stuff because the way it comes on the screen.
That's okay. You're good. You're good.
Okay, good. So I feel like right now, being that the foundation, if someone, non-Black people, can get in this film two things at the same time, what Black people have been through, the voice that needs to be shared, then what Black women experience, who are the least people heard, who are never, ever seen as they are. I think it's so, so powerful. And I'm watching people that I know that are not Black watching it and seeing something for the first time. And what better time to do it right now when it's all over the media everywhere around the world right now. People are like, tuned in to something. So I feel like, Oge, I'm excited that this is happening, as you had said, theatrical releases and a wider platform as well. And I'm hoping, too, that maybe it can be on a Netflix or something, a streaming service, where people don't even have to search for it, where it just shows up on your feed and you're able to press play. Because it's so important. You said about curriculum in schools. If I had this growing up, the chances, I feel horrible when I say this, but this is my truth. I've been married 3 times. It's just my life. And none of them been Black. Now, people say, that we oftentimes marry someone like our mother. So sure, that could be a part of it. But it ain't just that. It's most likely a whole nother thing. So for other people, to be raised, even white people or other races, to be raised with a new perception, with a real perception of Black women, maybe that would look different. And I wouldn't have been married 3 times to the same looking person. And yet, my favorite person in the world is my wife. This is not, she knows I speak truth on this. This I knew with her. Say what?
I said, you got to wind it back around, or you're gonna be in some trouble.
Oh no! Hey, this is truth for me. Hey, she knows. I mean, I would die. That's my world. But it's heavy and it's deep. Yeah. That me, myself, and as a black man, raised as a black man, not seen, and even in family of my own that, not seen, and walking through the world not seen. For me, myself, to then not see y'all, come on. There's a lot of ways that we need to get to that. The work that my auntie Joy and my sister Ruha are doing, and of course Bahia, who are like my cousin, which is crazy too, Ogie, the fact that some of us involved in this project didn't know each other was going to be involved in this project, and many of us are like consider each other family. It just worked out that way.
So
anyways, I champion what you're doing.
We got all kinds of questions.
We got all kinds of questions. I must have fixed that up.
Okay.
But there was one. Which one are you looking at?
I'm looking here.
Yeah. That's fine.
So,
Ogie.
my uncle. Yeah, I know. How to
That was
say
so
it. I know.
neat.
I know how to say that. I know who is the. And if she's how she does to me, I'm
I'm the
grown
mother.
though. But I'm grown
But I'm
though.
your mother. I'm always
Like,
being
how
your
you
mother.
gonna be
You'll
mid-40s
always be
and she
your
trying to tell me
mother.
how to say
I
stuff?
can tell you what to do.
Anywho, so Ogie, so one of the questions we have from my Uncle Gene actually says, how did you decide what stories you were going to tell? Because he can imagine that there were so many stories that you didn't include because you couldn't have. How did you decide? Yeah.
In the research phase, I remember texting a few of my friends that were Black women, and I was like, okay, this is really random, but just flow with me on this. I was like, let's text every Black man we know and ask them 3 words. Ask them this question: if you can describe the Black woman in 3 words, what would it be? And so I get back like 100 responses. And, if I got angry 45 times, I wrote it down 45 times. If I got beautiful, 20 times, I wrote it down 20 times. So like I wrote down every word I got, no matter how many times I got it. And as I was continuing with the research, I'm like looking at this sheet, this big white sheet of paper with all these words. And I'm like, oh, why did I do that? That makes no sense. So like for a month, I'm like, oh, this was so dumb. Why did I do that? And then like a month and a half later, I'm looking at this sheet and I'm like reading a book, and 3 words just kept popping out off the page to me. And the 3 words were hurt, resilient, and beautiful. And so I was like, oh, like, let me try to tell this story through these 3 words. And so then I started to map out, okay, like how do I address the experience in these 3 words based off all the research that I'm reading? So I go through months and months of continued research, and towards the end of it, I had a clearer vision. I was like, oh, so with hurt, I want to explore it in 3 different ways. Physical hurt, which, details like, the experimenting on black women bodies, the rape culture of it all. And then the mental hurt, like the labeling of Black women, from Mammy to Jezebel to the welfare queen. And then I wanted to wrap it up with the emotional hurt. So like, once you've been hurt in these 2 ways, like, how do you not only see yourself as a Black woman, but how do you relate to other Black women in society as a whole? And then with the resiliency part, it was very much so how Ruha beautifully says in the doc, how like it can be used as a double-edged sword. And so I really wanted to explore that word and how it's used in society. And then also too, like, as I was reading more so the articles and the books around slave culture, was that all these women that you'll read about and these girls was like how their faith kept them going, how the hope kept them going. And so I wanted to really dive into how faith plays a culture in the resiliency of Black women. And then the beautiful aspect of it for me was just celebrating the beauty of Black women, from the physical beauty to the many contributions that Black women have made and continue to make. And I know that I wanted to end it on that note because the first 2 I felt was very hard hitting and very heavy. And so I wanted to leave the audience and Black women on a note where not only did they feel seen and heard, but they felt celebrated. So that's how I came about with the structure of the film.
Last question. I know we're a little over, but we all are always a little over. We're late getting on. We do the best we can. But there's a question, and it's from Crystal Turner. She says, no disrespect to women of other groups, but it seems like women of African descent have a unique strength. Do you agree? And if so, where do you think that comes from? I'm going to ask Ruha that first.
I was about to say, Ruha, take it.
That's a question we could talk about for so long. It's hard to give a soundbite answer.
Yeah.
On the one hand, I always default to my training, which is as a sociologist, which means that if I'm looking at a difference in a group, I want to look at the social processes, the history, the context that creates that difference. I don't believe that there's something immutable or inherent in that difference. That is, if you would take women in the same group and create a whole different history or context, that you would get the same result. I think that it's been shaped over time. So whatever strength, independence, inability to be bossed, all of those words and qualities that we use, I think grows out of a particular, not just struggle. It's not just born out of the pain and the struggle, but it's how people have chosen to respond to that struggle. That is the kind of sociality, the relationships that Joy writes about. And so it's this combination of a history of oppression and the particular creative and social way that people have responded and fortified themselves in the process of that. And that fortification is what I believe is the beauty and the honesty, like one of the qualities that is the kind of, straight talk, straight shooting, truthfulness as the foundation of everything that, I think is born out of that. And so, again, it's something to unpack, but my short answer is that, yes, there's something unique, but it's not, I don't see it as genetic or something that is somehow not like destined. I believe it's grown out of complex processes and people. And so to me, that's more of a compliment because it involves choice. It involves people's choice of how to respond to oppression. It involves self-fashioning, which we spent a lot of time in the film unpacking, the way that even we take whatever we have, whether it's food, clothing, hair, and we find a way to fashion ourselves through that process. And that's why the attention to hair is that if you can't fashion yourself with a fancy job and a fancy house and a fancy this, you fashion yourself with what you got. And if that includes hair and color and texture, if that includes clothing, if that includes the way you walk, like you are going to know that I am a spirit in this world. And so we take what we can, and it's precisely because Black women have been so boxed in that it creates an imperative to fashion ourselves by any means necessary, precisely because people try to corner us, and through the stereotypes, through the institutions, through time, that our spirit is like fighting to let ourselves know that those are lies. Let me tell you the truth, honey. And that's why you can't help. I mean, that's why you can't mute it. You can't mute it. And that's why it comes into the room before us, because if for so long that has been pushed down and oppressed, it creates through our self-fashioning an imperative that we have to assert our presence, our beingness, not even humanity, but beingness. And we are going to let you know through the way we talk, through the way we walk, and the way we dress, and the way we cook, and the way we love each other, that all of that is a lie. Let me tell you the truth. And we are going to reflect that truth back at each other. And so that's why if the world is lying to you from every corner, everything you watch, every institution you walk through, that creates an imperative to create the truth of who you are in every interaction, in every head nod, in every embrace. And so it's that dialectic, it's that relationship between the oppressive forces and our desire and our longing to fashion ourselves that I think creates what we see flatly as the kind of uniqueness of Black women.
Whoa!
That was not a soundbite. That was not a soundbite. And
that was a sermon.
That was it.
That was a whole word. And that's my friend. That's my friend. But also, when you say unbossed in the show, you're like, unbossed. I'm like, that is really what it is that think about how bossed we have been.
Exactly.
And how we refuse to really be, you're not gonna, like, you might think you got me, but you don't got me, right? That has been like, from the beginning, like, you don't got me like that. And so I think the idea of being unbossed when we have been the most bossed is that's
the relationship between those.
That's right. For sure.
And on that note,
and I know Ruha got to go to bed.
And Ruha got to go to work. I know she's already way past. She makes
right at 5 a.m. club.
She
be bird watching and stuff early in the morning. I'm looking at this thing like, she really watching birds. And so look, I sent her a meme where there's like the extrovert bird that's like going like this, and the other bird that's like, I said, it's me and you. It's me.
Introvert and extrovert. Well, I love y'all.
I love you too.
Love you.
Thank you so much
for coming.
Ogie, we love you.
Ogie, we love you.
Thank you.
We still want to know how to get the film.
It's on there. So go back to the title, the little go back to the flyer. It's on there. Find it. We need to make it something that's mandatory. We need to make it accessible on Netflix and other things.
Buy it, make other people buy it.
That's right. Pressure them.
And I say this to anyone that I know, whoever's watching, I know. Don't call me if we're friends or family. I'm serious.